Welcome to A Voice and Beyond. We have a very special guest. Welcome, JO BHAKDI. Okay, BHAKDI. That's right, isn't it? JO BHAKDI.
That's right.
I know it's very confusing because your name doesn't match your German background, but that's a whole different story. You are the founder and CEO of Serenity. You have a master's in economics and you have held numerous executive positions. And your focus has mainly been on business model innovations and technology. But today we're going to speak about something completely different, and that is your interesting work that you're currently doing with Serenity. So do you want to tell us about Serenity, what it is, how you came to found this business, and how you transitioned to the work you're doing now? So a lot of questions.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Marissa, for having me. Well, Serenity, the origins of Serenity are very personal, right? I lost my mother to cancer just a few years ago, 5 years ago. And she was a physician herself, and she was late to her screening. It was colon cancer. And we detected it just far too late at stage 4. And I think a lot of families know the story, right? You are losing a loved one, in this case, probably the most important person in my life.
Yes.
And then you ask yourself, why did this happen? And when you understand like the nature of cancer, I always say there are these 4 horsemen that ultimately kill us, one of them, right? Neurodegenerative diseases, Parkinson, Alzheimer's, then of course cancer, cardiovascular, stroke and heart disease, and then metabolic, diabetes related. And these are the main killers by a far distance, right? 70–80% of deaths and in the Western world. And all of them have one thing in common that most people are not fully aware of. They are basically diseases we already have defeated that we can cure if we detect them early stage. If you detect any of these at the earliest stages, there are ways of reversing them in neurodegenerative, and which is a very new thing, but neurodegenerative, in metabolic diseases. And cancer, the cures for early stage cancer are just so good that most people don't have to die if they're found in stage 1. And so I was asking myself, like, why, if we have all the tools, we can detect all these things early stage, and then no one would die anymore. I mean, to put it simple, we can reduce the deaths by at least 50%,
Yes.
which is amazing. Why are we not doing it? And that triggered this whole journey that ended up with Serenity, where we said we need to get the most cutting edge, the most advanced early detection screenings into a product that people can afford. It's still not super cheap, but it's much cheaper than it was before. And that we can do annually, and that is easy to understand and easy to use. And that is a comprehensive service solution. So where you click one button and you get your screenings and you're safe. Which means it includes a physician, it includes different modalities from deep genomics to imaging, full body MRIs, everything that is effective and within the price range. And that is the vision of Serenity. Can we change our healthcare system and behavior so we do annual precision medicine screenings for everyone, detect all diseases early stage, and reduce our risk of dying very dramatically?
Wow. Wow. So then did you put together a team of professionals? How did this all come about in terms of, you know, who were the people that you called in, all the little micro things that had to happen in order for this to come together?
It's a long story that started in 2015 when my mom was actually diagnosed. It was a weird coincidence. I started QuantGene, which is a genomics company, back in 2015. And I think a month later, my mom was diagnosed. So it was weird. And QuantGene's mission was to solve this problem we just discussed only in cancer and only on one modality, which is a blood-based early detection test. It's called liquid biopsy because it's basically taking a biopsy of your cells in your body through a blood sample. So it's very non-invasive. And we worked on that for a long time. invested over $40 million into one of the most advanced genomics labs in the United States, the Quantgene Alpha Lab. And we can, that allowed us to do amazing things on the genomics side. But the reason Serenity was founded is that we saw, well, that's a very diagnostic-centric approach, right? You have a great genomic solution now, but people don't care about genomics. They care about not dying.
Yes.
And there's the connection, but genomics alone is not doing the full job. What about precision imaging? What about medical services? What about doctors who understand that? What about the price point? What about medical intelligence cloud systems that connect all these data points? And so we realized genomics alone is not going to solve the entire problem. The entire problem can only be solved when we assemble a solution that takes the genomics, but adds precision imaging, that adds medical intelligence, that adds a service layer of trained precision medicine doctors who understand all these data points and give you a specific answer to the question what you should do to stay safe. So that's what we did next, created Serenity and built a solution that is really focused on the patient. So a patient can understand why they're doing it, because you don't want to die, and you want to detect all these diseases early stage, and you want to detect by any means possible, because in the end, you don't care how your cancer was detected and how you were saved. If that was a genomics molecule, or it was an imaging image, or it was a standard of care procedure, you don't care. You just want to get them all deployed so you're safe. And that's what Serenity did.
Okay. Now, you say that you can increase the lifespan of most human beings by a decade. So is this truly possible by this detection process that you've set up? And is this possible for anyone? Can any human being increase their lifespan?
So what you're referring there, Marissa, is our vision, which is like to extend the healthy human lifespan by 10 years within the next 10 years. And so can we really do that? Well, we definitely can. We can do it on a statistical basis, right? So if you give me a population of 100,000 people and you get early detection precision screenings like Serenity optimized and rolled out and create full adherence, I am very, very confident that this would lead to something like a 10-year lifespan extension in average. So that's the hard thing to wrap your head around in medicine. Everything is statistics, right? So no one can guarantee that you specifically will live 10 years longer, because there's 10 million things that can happen that are completely out of control of anyone. So
exactly.
But if we take 10,000 Marissas, of course there's only one, but you know what I mean, 10,000 people in a certain age group, a certain number of these people unfortunately die, in a certain period of time, statistically. And what you can do is, by deploying these things, we can bring down your personal risk of dying very dramatically. I'm publishing a white paper right now. We estimate precision screenings annually done reduce the risk of death by 50%. They cut it in half.
That's a lot.
Between 35 and 75 years old. So that is a lot, because you're basically attacking the 4 horsemen that are most likely to kill you in the most effective possible way. And so to your question, I think on a population level, yes, I'm very confident if you roll a system like Serenity out across a critical mass of people, that you will with very high reliability see, because you decrease of the risk of death per year so dramatically, that this leads to an extension of the average lifespan that is also dramatic. And it's kind of simple math in a way. If you have, a life expectancy of 78 years in the United States, for example, for men, if I reduce your risk of death between 35 and 75 by, you cut it in half, I basically reduce the risk of death from 30%, which it is. You have a 30% chance of dying between 35 and 75, which is high.
It is.
No one wants to think about it, but that's how you 78 years median, or average. So if you cut this in half, what happens? These 15% that don't die, they are still alive. And so what does it do to the whole cohort? Of course, then everyone lives longer on average because the average is now pushed out dramatically. That's how we have to think about it. I know it's like people always like stories, and
Oh no.
they want to know more concretely, like, oh, if you do this to me, can you guarantee me I live 10 years longer? It's like, well, it's not that simple. First of all, no one knew how long you would live, so it's hard to compare. So we have to look at it on a population level, but on that level, yes, the science is pretty compelling on that side.
Yes. Now, you've also launched, I'm assuming this is part of Serenity, you've launched a preventative healthcare platform called 20questions.live, and that commenced in March this year. What is that? And are these the types of questions that doctors are most likely to ask you?
That's a great question. So Serenity is still, well, when you look at comparable services here in the United States, the people who actually get these precision screenings once a year, they pay between $20,000 and $120,000 per year for that. That's like...
You are kidding. That's how much money we have to pay, or a person has to pay, to find out what's going on with their health.
That is what the cutting edge concierge docs charge for organizing this, because it's so difficult to organize all these components. And so what Serenity did is we disrupted that price point and brought it down very dramatically. But we are still at roughly, $350 per month. So it still costs roughly $4,000, which is much better than $120,000.
My gosh, sign me up today.
That's a huge difference. Well, you're far away. You have to come to
I'm
LA.
there next month.
So that's what we basically made happen on Serenity.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, there's still a lot of people, or let's say there are definitely people who cannot afford $350 a month. And so the 20 questions were designed as a free system that does at least what we can do through pure questions and medical intelligence for everyone. And so governments like this, for example, to try to keep their local populations healthy. So they're trying to get everyone to engage. So the 20 questions are basically 20 question categories that are very easy to answer. And to your question, yes, it is something your physician should ask you. But when you look at the statistics, less than 20% of physicians actually do that. And that leads to crazy care gaps. Only 6% of Americans actually have full covered preventative care. So vastly over 90% of Americans are not getting all the preventive care they should, for simple knowledge reasons. It's like no one asks the right questions. They are not diligent in asking them. There's no system. It's like a paper thing or something. So the 20 questions is a new medical intelligence system that allows you to just go there, 20questions.live, answer a bunch of questions. And according to US guidelines, it will tell you, oh, Marissa, you have 3 problems. You are late to this screening, you didn't do that lab test, and you missed your annual physical. So all the things that are actually recommended you should do, statistically backed that this can save your life. And so it's a very convenient tool to just for free figure out what's going on. Mm-hmm. And often the physicians, I mean, when you talk to physicians behind the scenes, they always say, yeah, I don't have time for this, like too many patients, we don't have a system, so it's too complicated. So we are not asking all the right questions.
Yes, yes. So in terms of these questions, what are some of the things that you ask?
It goes from everything from family history, like did you have ever cancer in the family? And if yes, who had what cancer? That is very important to understand your risk. Into other disease categories, same question, family history. Anyone had a heart attack? Anyone had a stroke? Do you have elevated cholesterol in the family, and so on? So that's family. Another thing is yourself. Were you ever diagnosed with any of the following, like diabetes, cancer?
Yes.
Lifestyle questions. Do you smoke? Right? Do you drink a lot of alcohol? Do you have exposure to certain chemicals? So that is one area. And then, of course, screening questions. Do you remember when your last time you got a mammogram? Yes. When was it? Oh, roughly last year. Okay. And then so we get this in. And so and so on. Like if you're at risk for lung cancer, did you ever have a lung cancer CT scan? And you can always say, I don't recall, I don't know exactly when. So it's like smart, so it can be adaptive. And then the amazing thing about the 20 questions, the revolutionary technology about it is that you get your results right away after you answer them. That's the first time ever. It tells you actually what your gaps are.
Wow. Wow.
And a system like this doesn't exist because for liability reasons, no one was able to make it so accurate that they can make these statements because these are medical statements.
Mm-hmm.
So if you normally do these surveys somewhere on the American Cancer Society website or on American Heart Association, they always say, oh, answer all the questions. And then it says, oh, Marissa, you should talk to your doctor. It's like, well, why do I answer the questions if you just tell me I should talk to my doctor?
Yeah.
So we made it happen that it actually says, oh, you're 2 months late to a mammogram. You should get a pap smear. And, you're also late to your, colon cancer test. If you need help, click here.
Okay. So this type of questioning, I'm sort of thinking about Dr. Google here. The number of people that go, oh, I'm just going to do a little Google search, and I call it Dr. Google when people put in what they think is wrong with them, or their symptoms, and then Dr. Google spits out, this is what is wrong with you. And I mean, many people are misdiagnosing themselves. Is there a possibility that this 20 questions live can have the same effect? If someone answers a question incorrectly or puts in the wrong information, can it be that kind of scenario as you can get with Dr. Google?
Well, I would say no, because first of all, we don't diagnose anything. What we do is we point out preventative care gaps, right? We are very specific. This is a system not designed to tell you if you have a certain disease or something. It tells you what you need to do to be maximum safe and protected. So it's a preventative care system.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the risks for that are very limited because whatever we tell you should do goes through physicians anyway. I mean, you can't just go somewhere and get a mammogram without a physician involved, right? So
exactly.
So basically, we sent you to a physician, but now you know exactly what you need to do. And the physician is now forced to double check, of course. They're going to say like, oh, why do you think you need a mammogram? It's like, well, because the app said it. And then it's like, well, when was your last mammogram? He said like, oh, last month. And then the physician's going to say, then you don't need a mammogram. Did you tell the app you had it last month? Like, no, I told the app.
Yes.
3 years ago. So there is a double check because we are not telling you a diagnosis, so we don't create anxiety. We just tell you, you are late based on your answers. You are late to the following things, and that's not good. Go to your doctor and fix it, or call your little helper here on 20 questions. You can pay a little money and we give you a helper to organize it in case you don't have a doctor or you don't have insurance or whatever it is.
Mm. Do you think the medical industry is going to support what you're doing? Because, the Western medical system is a money-making industry. There are billions and billions of dollars being made through people being sick. So trillions. Okay, that's even scarier. So is it in the medical industry's best interest to endorse this kind of prevention, or do they want us to keep getting sick because they're making money out of it?
Well, that's I'm an economist by trade.
Yes.
So I like your question because that is the right question to ask, right? Humans will always remain humans. And I think a lot of people have a very romanticized idea of healthcare for some reason. It's very simple. It's about, in the end, people are also motivated by money or power, whatever it is. And these incentives need to be set correctly, and they are not set correctly. So correct setting would be, for Serenity, they are set correctly because we make money if you buy Serenity. Our promise to you is you die at a lesser rate, and we have to prove this constantly. Otherwise, people don't buy it. So we align our profit profit motive with your life motive, because there's not much to trick here, right? If we would fail constantly and constantly our people die at a higher rate, no one would buy the product. That's a clear-cut, nice incentive. It's like cars, right? The car industry is very big. No one has a problem with the car industry like cheating on you, because they try to convince you it's the best car. Then you pay a lot of money, and either it is or not. And if it's not, you buy another car. So that's no problem. Like, the money motive is not inherently a problem. It becomes a problem in certain situations. Like, for example, if I'm a drug company and you are not even choosing the drugs, they're chosen for you, and I can only make money when you're sick, then it starts being a problem, right? If a drug company would knock out cancer with vitamin C, I'm not saying that's possible, by the way, but let's hypothetically say some random vitamin would cure cancer, that would be a disaster for a $200 billion industry.
Exactly.
And they're not going to like that. So the short answer is, the medical industry is very complex, has many different people in there, and companies and government organizations. Some of them like it, some of them don't. And the ones that like it are the ones that can benefit from systems like Serenity. Employers, for example, in the United States that pay for healthcare, they don't want you to be sick, they want you to be healthy because you are a worker. So if they can benefit from more healthy populations, they tend to like what we do. And if they can't really benefit from it, that's also that's a long story. There's also a lot of inertia and conservatism there, that a lot of doctors often just say, I don't like anything new. So that's just work. And so some docs are amazing and they want the new things, they want to protect their patients, but then there are also doctors who just say new stuff is annoying.
Yes, well, it's education, isn't it? And I think in one sense, by this 20 questions that this platform you've set up, you are also educating people.
Yes,
I feel
the 20 questions, it's very, very difficult to be against that. So it's not many people who are against the 20 questions. There are some like payers and insurance systems that benefit from all kinds of complicated things that not like it. But most doctors are, of course, they like 20 questions. Most employers, even most health plans, they say like, sure, of course, if people would do what we want them to do in order to not get sick, that would be very good. And it's a big problem in healthcare, that who creates the most engaging system like that? And there are not many trying it.
Yes. The problem I feel is that as someone who, I take care of myself, I do whatever I can in order to prevent becoming unwell. And some time ago, I went to the doctor. I won't give you the whole backstory. I won't bore you with that. But that we were talking about family history, only because I happened to be there by mistake, which is a whole other story. And we were talking about my mum, who had a heart attack. She had a 5 bypass operation. Her arteries were blocked, and we talked about cholesterol levels, and she had high cholesterol. And if you look at me, you wouldn't think I'm someone who has high cholesterol, because I'm not overweight and I exercise, I don't smoke, I do all the right things, I eat good food. But she sent me along to have a cholesterol test. Now I went for that test and it came back that in fact I did have high cholesterol. And so once again, there's nothing we can change here because you eat well, you're doing all the right things. So we have to medicate you. And I said, no, I will not take medication, because I'm one of those people who believes that you take a pill for one thing, a year later, you've got to start taking a pill for something else that pill's caused. And then you end up on this roller coaster and you can never get off. So I said, no, I don't want to have this medication. But I've heard of this test that you can have that will give you an indication of what your risk factor is for having a heart attack. And her response was, well, you've got to pay for that test. I said, I don't care that I have to pay for it. It was $200 Australian for me to go and have this test. And it came, and I knew about this because of a friend of mine who had been down the same road. So this is where a little knowledge can be powerful. So my test came back 0 possibility of me having a heart attack. However, they found that I had minor COPD, which would not have been detected if I didn't have that test that I requested. Now, my friend, on the other hand, having that same test, because both of us are asymptomatic, came back that she had stage 1 lung cancer.
Oh, wow.
Right. Now, if neither of us had requested this test, she could have been at stage 4 before she had symptoms. I could have been way worse because I now have been educating myself in how to manage what I have, because it is incurable, but I can manage it. And now she's going to be okay. But, you know, if we didn't know about this, we didn't know about these tests, this test, both of us could have been in those statistics that you were talking about. So I feel that the easy fix for medicine is, let's just give you a pill to fix it. No one's doing the work, as you're saying, to prevent and to do the screenings. And I think that our medical systems are at a mess at the moment. And if there's a way that doctors can start making money from prevention, maybe that's the shift that we need economically. Do you feel?
I mean, these are tremendous stories, Marisa. Thanks for sharing that. And I mean, we see this all day long. And the bottom line is standard of care. Of course, you are never allowed to say anything negative about it, but we have to understand the standard of care is the most socialized medicine approach ever, right? It's basically saying you're all the same. We apply some averages on you. And if something costs $100, you're not going to get it. And if you die, that's not our problem. It's not worth $100. That's literally what it is. And,
yes.
And I'm not like even kidding. That's exactly how it's being calculated. It's like, well, we have to prove that we extend a quality life year by 1 year for less than $50,000, which means if you spend $100, right, and if 500 people need it or 600 people need it before you save 1 life, it's not worth it. And so, well, who are you to tell me what's my life worth? Like, maybe I want to spend the $200, and guess what? So that is why we invented Serenity. I mean, Serenity is basically what you guys figured out is tremendous, but there's more things to figure out. So
yes,
the idea is very simple. Buy Serenity, become a member, and all of that is taken care of, like the entire thing. Because what you want is a specialized company and technology and team and knowledge base that looks into all of these tests and all of the conditions and all of the diseases and comes up with a solution that is comprehensive. That's why it's called Serenity Complete. Because the theory is, it's not even a theory, like get screened every year comprehensively across all organ systems and with deep genomics and with full data. And from there we go, if there's any subsequent tests that might be appropriate, we do that. So you are not tactically doing something, because what you guys went through is a kind of a random tactical success, right? That you had, oh, my mom and there's cholesterol, that's what can I do about that? Then you made the right decision with the physician to say, like, I want this test, and then you got that specific test, and that actually told you COPD. But what about everything else? Like, did you look at your pancreas or liver or kidney? You know, so there's like, I mean, there's more. And
of course.
And of course, you want a system that is so complete and proactive that you know that you have most of your bases strategically, not tactically covered, like strategic scans and screens.
Yes. Now you're saying that your system is costing $350 a month, which, you know, I think is, who wouldn't pay that to stay to ensure that they remain in good health and have that longevity. But what about the people who can't afford that? What can they be doing then to help themselves?
Well, number one, that's why we invented the 20 questions, because that's free. So that's a good starting point. Of course, that's more limited than Serenity because it cannot do deep genomics. It cannot do whole body imaging and things like that, and physician advisory. But it gets you in the door because it already has some of the bases covered through data. Now, our vision as a company not just vision, it's a very clear path. How do we get complete protection to the extent possible, which is a very big extent, to everyone? And talking about profit motives and so on, we do this to get this technology to everyone. But if we lose money, we are not going to get it to everyone. So we need to price it where we price it now. But we did a first principle analysis on the cost basis. We can get Serenity Complete, the most advanced system of precision medicine screening, to everyone for under $100 if 1 million people would use it.
Wow.
And 1 million people is not that many. I mean, the US
No.
alone is 40 million. So
No.
our mission as a company now is very clearly delineated and carved out. I know, personally, I know we can reduce your risk of death by 50%.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of arguments made to show that in the white paper. I can't guarantee it, of course, but we can have a very compelling model that a lot of smart physicians agree with. Okay, this costs right now roughly $4,500 a year, or $350 a month. If we get it to 1 million, this will cost less than $1,200 a year, so 99 or something. And there in between, we will hit certain milestones. At 100,000 is already, I think 30% cheaper. So now it's very clear there are enough people, way more than 1 million, that can afford that price point. So let's push it, allow us to reach scale to get these more efficient ways of delivering this to more and more people. And we can make this happen within the next 5 years. And then everyone would have access to it.
Okay. Now, I love that you're using AI as part of this, part of the work that you're doing. Do you feel that AI is going to really play a role in technology in the future of healthcare?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you one example. First of all our systems are AI powered. The deep genomics needs a lot of AI. The imaging needs a lot of AI for detection. So we already have AI all over the place. It's like software, right? I think every company nowadays that is tech-driven is an AI company, AI first. So we are, of course, an AI company, but I don't say it because it's obvious, like you need to be an AI company. It's like saying we are a software company. Of course, we are a software company. Like we have a big cloud team and but the 20 questions, for example, my prediction is in latest 18 months, the 20 questions will be one of the most powerful diagnostics tools in the world, because what's happening on AI is very dramatic. And I think in latest 12 months or something, AI large language models will be, I shouldn't say that, maybe on like, my conviction is they will be better than the vast majority of physicians in diagnosing. Because what they can do now. And
that's a big call.
I'm pretty sure about that. And if you then can plug that into systems like 20 questions, that's why 20 questions is so important, and it's free. Go to 20questions.live. Right now, we only do prevention, right? We only tell you preventative care gaps. But once we have a fully capable chatbot kind of on the back end that is truly medically sound, we will have to see if there are FDA approvals for these AI systems or not. We will be able to basically have a doctor with you all the time. And that will happen in the next 18 months. And that means you can type in your issues and problems and you can get very high resolution response. And that is dramatic, and it will be free, basically.
Incredible. So do you believe that the medical profession will ultimately back what you're doing? If in one sense, you're going to be sending the people to the doctor if there is a problem there.
I think the medical, what's often like a little misunderstood is that the healthcare system is not the medical profession. There's a huge difference between healthcare and medicine. The medical professionals, no one in their right mind or with any kind of knowledge about anything is going to be against what we are doing who's a doctor.
Right.
The people who are against what we are doing, even though they would never say that, are not doctors. Or at least are not in the role of a doctor. There might be doctors. They are healthcare system administrators. And so the money people, they are the problem. The people in management, administration, and who have touched the money, they become the problem, not the physician. Any physician who is reasonably educated, who looks at Serenity, is going to say, fine, if you do it this way, it's probably saving a lot of lives. They can
Yes.
complain about the cost and say, is it really accessible and so on? But we have a plan for this. The people who are the real problem are not the physicians. It is their bosses, basically, or the payers, right? The people who say, well, you can't do that because we are not going to pay for that. And even if you detect something, we will deny coverage of downstream treatments for the patients because it was not detected through the means we recommended. So they are just trying to not pay, or they're trying to give you more drugs. So like, it is not the physicians that are the problem. The problem is the healthcare system. And
I think too, you're going to have to shift the mindset of a lot of people who run to the doctor every time they break a fingernail. Like my mum, bless, she would run to the doctor every week. If she sneezed, she would run to the doctor. And you're going to have a part of the population who will only, they look at the doctor as the unsung hero and the guru swami of life. And so those people there, they're probably going to be harder to convince that they should use the test as their first port of call rather than their doctor.
Yeah, I mean, it's very simple. The more strategic you think, the more logical and the more effective you think, the faster you buy Serenity. And the more you're the opposite of that, the less you will be convinced, because it's in the end a strategic understanding of health, of risk of death, of the quantitative probabilities that something kills you and how do you defeat it. And so people are very emotional about things, or like wait until it's too late and then just want to be taken care of, not use their brain and actually understand how they fight, the risk of death. They will be the least likely to buy our systems, because our systems are all about who's the most strategic target group, who's strategic about their life, who wants to be knowledgeable, and who uses logic and their own judgment to understand what's going on, and who uses physicians as their advisors and not their like caretakers or something.
Yeah.
And good physicians like that. They like educated patients. They want to have discussions and inform the patient.
Definitely. Now, you've also launched a YouTube channel.
Yes, Save Your Life with Joe on YouTube.
Save Your Life with Joe. Well, we'll have to put that in the show notes. And also, where can our listeners go and find the 20 questions? Because I want everyone to go and do the 20 questions. This is really interesting. And we want to hear your feedback once you've done that.
Absolutely. On 20questions.live. Very easy.
Right. And it's free.
It's free.
It is free, which is unbelievable.
US guidelines, like full disclosure, this is United States guidelines. So whatever we say there is technically only valid in the United States, but most other countries like Australia, Germany, UK have very similar, because it's like a consensus in the world. So, but there are certain guidelines that this is based on that are US based, but it's.
What I love about the US, they have the best drugs. You go to the pharmacy or the drugstore, as you guys call it, and there's a drug for everything. We don't have access to those drugs here in Australia. Literally, some of the stuff that you can buy over the counter, we have no hope of getting that over the counter here. It's incredible. And then the other thing I find fascinating is the ads on TV. They are selling the drug, but then by the time you go through all the side effects that they warn you about, you go at the start of the ad, you're going, oh, that sounds so cool. Yeah, that will fix me. I really want to go and take that drug. By the end of it, you go, no, I don't want to be taking that drug.
It's kind of a European friend, a German friend told me when she was here. It's like a satire, the whole advertising, because first you get all the ads for all first they have all the crazy food ads to get diabetes, and then the drug that is good against diabetes, and it's like,
but it's all this how they tell you all the side effects. See, our advertising here, we don't get told the side effects on the advertising, but by the time you get to the end of them, you think, oh, I'd rather just put up with the diabetes and have all those side effects. It's crazy. Now, in wrapping up, Is there anything you wanted to add to our discussion, Joe?
I think your questions were amazing, and they also show your journey yourself, right? COPD and your friend with lung cancer. And I can just really advise everyone, use your own judgment. Like, you need to use your brain and common sense and listen to your doctor, but don't just obey anything they say. Like, use everyone as an advisor, also me. Like, don't just do what people say, like, listen, like, learn from it, but then think critically about it. Like, is it really not appropriate to buy a test for $100? Like, why would that not be appropriate? Because it's a big bias with physicians that they say, no, you don't need the testing, because they don't want to deal with any kind of result that creates too much work and trouble for them. But as a patient, I am very, of course, I'm maybe a little extreme, but I want every data point I can get. Like, I will make my own judgment. I don't need, like, oh, what if it's a false positive? What if they say you have cancer? Like, no one tells me I have cancer. People tell me results. And they tell me how much, circulating tumor DNA did you find? Did you have a lesion in the kidney? That's what I want to hear. I don't like the question if it's cancer or not, it's my call. And, the question if I should get a biopsy is my call. And so I think, of course, I want physicians to advise me. I ask them, well, do you think it's reasonable risk? But I am making the calls here because I'm the boss, I'm the patient. And that's what people need to understand. If you're not your own boss over your life and health, the odds that you die go up. And that's not good. So I can just encourage people, be your own boss, especially when it comes to your life.
And I think sometimes if you are an intuitive person, you know yourself when there's something not right. I mean, I have been misdiagnosed in the past. I was told that I had depression when I was having terrible headaches, and I was really unwell, and I was told I needed to be medicated for depression when I ended up having viral meningitis.
Yeah.
And I ended up being sick, very, very sick for 6 months. But I just knew that, but I don't feel depressed. You're telling me I've got this. And sometimes they go on a history of, oh, you've had this in the past. So, this loosely sounds like what you've had in the past. So let's just diagnose you with the same thing and get you out the door, because the more patients I can see in an hour, the better it is for me and my hip pocket. But anyway, we can all go on a tangent about this, but I want to thank you, Joe, for your time and the incredible work that you're doing. If it's, we end up saving all these lives, you end up doing this work, it's brilliant. And we will share all your links in the show notes for our listeners. And I encourage everybody to go and do the 20 questions initially. Just go and have a look at those. I'm certainly going to do it. And let's give Joe some feedback on this. It would be great for you to hear how this has all gone for people and what they've discovered in the 20 questions.
Yeah, and I can encourage everyone, go to my YouTube channel, Save Your Life with Joe. And there you also get an email, saveyourlifewithjoe@gmail.com. And you can always write me. And I would love to hear from everyone, from all your listeners, because this is like a feedback loop, right? We need to learn from people.
Exactly.
And what their concerns are, maybe Australia, like, we just want to know everything about what concerns you and how you view the whole thing, what your experience was with 20 questions about Serenity, but also questions about preventative care or stories like the one Marissa shared today. That's just so interesting for me to hear. So I love to hear stories and from patient journeys, or feedback on everything we do, or comments on my videos.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time, Joe. This has been fascinating and something a little different for our listeners to engage with as well. So wish you all the very best and keep saving lives. Do the work that you're doing, and let's rattle the healthcare system, give it a bit of a shake up so they don't continue to just put band-aids on everything, but actually let's see what's truly going on within our patients.
You definitely will do that. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much,
Joe.
Marisa. Really
Thank
enjoyed it.
you. Bye.
Bye.